Salvete omnes. In this grammar video, we're going to be talking about the subjunctive mood. And the subjunctive mood differs mainly from the indicative mood. Indicative is what we usually use in a lot of our speech, but we use the subjunctive a lot too. But indicative mood mainly refers to, actions that are real, things that are reality. Okay, so I'm being very, very general here. Mainly reality. So, subjunctive mood is more unreality or things that have not yet happened, or a lot of times they're used in subordinate clauses in Latin. There's a lot of uses of the subjunctive. So whereas translating an indicative mood verb, like translating dicit, it just says he says. It's very simple. He says. It's easy to translate it. But translating a subjunctive form of the verb to say, of dicit, is a little more challenging because it depends on the way it's used in the sentence. Okay, and so I'm not always going to give you simple translations for the subjunctives as we're talking about their forms, because the translation of it can kind of vary depending on the context of the sentence. But in general, it's things that maybe haven't happened yet, that are going to happen. It's used in if-then statements, conditional statements is what they call that. It's used in a lot of subordinate clauses and things like that. So I'll try to point them out when we go through the lines of Virgil and Caesar, so you can see them in their context, and you'll get a feel for how to translate them. We're going to be talking mostly about the forms. I'll just give you one form here that you might be used to seeing the subjunctive, and sometimes it's used in independent clauses, sometimes in subordinate clauses. One way is might be like if a dicit is he says, dicat is like let him say, let him say something. He hasn't actually said it yet, but let him say it, dicat. And you might remember those from words like, imus is we go someplace. But eamus is a subjunctive, let's go. Okay, let's go. Saying, we haven't done it yet, but let's do it. And that's called the hortatory subjunctive, meaning the encouraging subjunctive. Let's do something that we're not already doing. And that gives you the idea of the unreality thing. But it's not just that. There's more to it than that. Now, looking at the uses of the subjunctive, your Cambridge book, this is the Unit 4 book, has a good section in the language information section on page 328. You can see some uses of the subjunctive. There's a lot. It's used with cum when it means when, the conjunction cum. Okay, when I was doing this, and use the subjunctive with that. It's used with ubi when you're asking indirect questions, meaning, the soldiers wanted to find out ubi senes gemas kelaweret, where the old man had hid the gems. Okay, so when you have a question that's an indirect question, meaning it's not a direct question, but it's something that someone's thinking or saying in the sentence, then you use subjunctive. You also use it in purpose clauses with ut. Okay, I'll stay here to defend the house. Ut willam defendam. So I'll stay here so that I might defend the house. That's like unreality. It hasn't happened yet. This is why I'm staying here, so that I can defend the house. We don't know specifically if he is successfully defending the house. That's the idea. It's unreality in a way. Indirect command, same idea when something's not a direct command, but it's indirect. I warn you, or I advise you, ut legibus pareas, to obey the laws, that you obey the laws. We don't know if you actually are obeying the laws, but this is the warning that you obey the laws. So it has that unreality sort of feel. Result clause, the barbarians threw so many spears that most horsemen were wounded. Not sure about the whole unreality thing here, but it's used again with ut, and result clauses you use the subjunctive. There's also some other ones that it gives using with priusquam and doom, fearing clauses when you're afraid. The miser was afraid that a thief would find his gold. He didn't actually know if it's not actually finding his goal, but this is a fear that he might do this. So there's that unreality thing. And then you can take a look at these ones too. Far, in the end of Far, in his appendix, he also has a lot of stuff, more detailed, on different moods, particularly subjunctive, in different situations. And he has a lot of the same things, purpose clauses, fearing clauses down there, fearing clauses, and things like that, result clauses. So if you want to read more about it, this is not the most exciting stuff. You got cum clauses down there, and then also even, this is a big one, conditional sentences, like with if and things like that. So I think the best way to, encounter subjunctives is just, I'll bring it up when we meet one, and I'm going to show you right now some of the forms so you'll be familiar with them and able to identify them when you see them. So here we go. I'm going to zoom out again, and this is like we had for the indicative mood. We're going to do this for the subjunctive mood. Just kind of lay out those tenses. And you might remember, here was my indicative active, okay, for amare. That's what it looks like, amo amare. I'm going to do the same thing here with the subjunctive. You might notice right away that there's not 6 tenses. Notice there's no subjunctive future so much, because in a sense, all subjunctives are kind of like a future in that they might happen, right, in the future. So that's part of the reason why there's no subjunctive future. A lot of people think that futures and subjunctives in some ways were the same forms at one time in Latin. And I'll show you that, an example of that. So we got amo, amare, amawi, that's perfect active, amatus. Remember, it's I love, to love, I loved, loved, or having been loved, like the adjective. He is loved. Okay, amatus est. So we have a present subjunctive. And the present subjunctive, notice all this is subjunctive. What you do in present subjunctives is you change vowels. Okay, I'm going to talk about all the conjugations here, but first we'll talk about amo because it's a first conjugation. Remember, long A is first. So this stem vowel, long A, is very important in this present subjunctive. In an indicative, you'd have amo, amas, amat, amamos, amatis, amat. But when you change the stem vowel, for first conjugation, the stem vowel A changes to E. Okay, so it goes like this. Ego amem, like I might love. Okay, ames, you might love. Amet, see how my amo, amas, amat is changing to E's? That's my stem vowel changing. Okay. Amemus, same endings, right? Ametis, we all might love, you all might love, and ament. So it's just my stem vowel changes, but my endings stay the same. And I'm not going to put a translation because it could be all kinds of different things. It could be like, let me love, okay? May you love, he would love, or it can be translated a lot of different ways depending on the context. Okay? Now, I said I was going to mention the other conjugations too, and let me do that quickly, okay? You always have vowel shifts in the present subjunctive. So if it's first, it goes A to E. If it's a second conjugation, which is long E, like manere, maneo, then it changes to EA is the vowel, maneas, okay? If it's third conjugation, which is a short E, it just changes to A. And fourth, which is an I, long I, also changes to A, okay? And then the third IO, which changes to like IA or something like that. So, so an example, okay? So amas changes to ames. Manes changes to maneas, okay? Maneas. Ducat changes to ducat, okay? Ducat. And it's a ducat, ducat, decat. And long I, audit changes to audiat. Notice you keep the I in there because it's an I, and that you do the same thing for third IO. Change that I. Okay, I got to wrap it up. We'll do the rest in the next video.